Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with pork al latte. That's right, I'm doing my take on this classic, ancient Italian recipe where pork is braised or stewed in milk until amazingly tender and delicious. But do not let the name fool you. There's no milk in this. So we are doing a little bit of false advertising, but the good news is this was one of the most delicious pork stews I've ever tasted. Alright, so step one, we're going to go over to the stove where we have a pan on medium heat with a little splash of olive oil, and we're going to brown up some bacon. Alright, not too much. And while we do want those nice brown bacon pieces in our stew, this step is really to render the bacon fat into that olive oil so that we can brown our chunks of pork in there. And that's going to take 5 or 6 minutes, so while that's happening, why not cut up our pork? So I have a nice fatty piece of boneless pork shoulder, and we're just going to cut it in large chunks, maybe like 2-inch pieces. And of course, as always, the exact size doesn't matter, but you do want to try to get them evenly sized so that they all cook at about the same rate. It's kind of a key point with stews. So we're going to cut that up. We're not going to do too much fat trimming. Although if you do get a piece that's just solid fat, you can toss that. And once our pork has been chunkified, we're going to go ahead and season it generously with salt and freshly ground black pepper. And after a generous sprinkling on the cutting board, I want you to take your hand and give everything a nice mix to distribute that seasoning. And that's going to help pick up any of the excess on the board. All right, so mix it around good like a pork chunk mosh pit, okay? And by this time, our bacon should be crisp, which it is. So take a slotted spoon, remove that just momentarily, just set it aside, leave the fat in the pan. Turn the heat up to medium-high, and let's go ahead and brown our pork chunks. All right, so toss them in and let them sit there for a while. Don't be too quick to turn them. All right, we want a nice brown crust on those. All right, whenever I see people adding raw chunks of meat to a stew without browning it first, I cry. Actually, it's more like sobbing. But the point is, that's very sad. This step is what adds that super rich, meaty flavor to your stew. So do it properly, brown it thoroughly, and once it's beautifully brown like mine, go ahead and remove that to a plate or a bowl. At this point, we can turn the heat back down to medium, and we're going to throw in a chopped onion, along with a pinch of salt, and we're going to saute that for a few minutes until it turns kind of golden and translucent. And then, of course, we can't make any kind of Italian-inspired stew without adding some garlic, so we'll throw in some sliced garlic. I know we usually chop it, but I felt like slicing it this time. You can't do things the same way every time. It's bad for the brain. True story, ask any neurologist. Okay, so toss in some garlic. We're going to give that about a 1-minute stir, and then it's time to add the liquid. And as I said earlier, we're not using milk. We're going to use chicken broth and creme fraiche. And we're going to stir that in. And you know what? Creme fraiche deserves better than to be stirred with a spoon. So we're going to switch to a whisk, and we're going to mix that in. And that's going to serve the exact same purpose as the more traditional milk, except it's going to have more flavor, and when we reduce this, it's going to have a much more luxurious texture. We can also go ahead and raise the heat to high because we're going to bring this up to a simmer. We're also going to add our crispy bacon back in, or at least the bacon you haven't eaten yet. That's always a danger, so try not to eat the bacon while you're waiting. And we're also going to throw in a nice big handful of chopped sage. And while I usually say you can use any herbs you want, here I'm not going to say that. Use sage. It is so perfect with this. And then don't forget, we turned our heat up to high because we want to bring this up to a simmer. And as soon as it starts simmering, go ahead and place your pork back in. And of course, if there's ever any juices that accumulate on the plate that you reserved your pork, pour those in. Those are delicious. Nobody respects a cook who loses their juices. All right? And then here's the plan. We're going to reduce the heat to low. And when that comes down to a nice gentle simmer, we're going to cover that. And we're simply going to simmer covered until it's almost tender. Probably take about an hour. And after an hour, mine looked like this. So I tested mine with a spoon, and it was getting very close. All right, the meat would break apart, but it wasn't super tender yet, which is fine because what we're going to do at this point is raise the heat up to like medium or medium-high, and we're going to cook it uncovered until our liquid reduces down to a gorgeous gravy. And I really hate giving times here because I might tell you it's 20 minutes, and you'll think it should be 20 minutes, and it will affect your decision making. All right, so forget time. Let it bubble away until the sauce thickens and your pork gets to that magical melt-in-your-mouth state. And as that happens, feel free to skim any fat you want off the top. No problem there. This is going to be plenty rich enough. And at that point, we're ready for our last few final touches, which for me was a nice pinch of red pepper flakes. Just warm it up a little bit. Can you put some cayenne? No. And of course, you're always going to taste for salt and adjust for that. And when it feels, tastes, looks, and smells exactly like you want it, we're going to go ahead and serve that up on some beautiful polenta. I mean, you can put it on rice or noodles, but the smart money is always going to go with polenta here. So we're going to spoon that over some Parmesan spiked polenta. So we could serve it just like that. It's absolutely perfect, but I wanted to make it more perfect. No, that's not impossible. Because what we're going to do is give it the old fried whole sage leaf trick. And all that is taking some hot oil and frying some whole sage leaves for about 10-15 seconds, and then quickly remove them to a paper towel, and they actually get crispy. And you can just crumble that over, but because I was taking pictures, I went with the whole leaf approach. And even you people that are really bad at identifying gorgeous things would have to agree, that looks gorgeous. And above and beyond physical beauty, the taste and texture were just stunning. You got that melt in your mouth pork, simmered in that beautiful milky sauce, even though there's no milk. That creme fraiche and broth combined to do everything milk could do, plus more. So I was just so incredibly thrilled with how this came out. And now that the weather's turning a little colder, these kind of dishes really hit the spot. And who among us does not like our spot hit? I know I do, and I'm sure you do too. Alright? So I really hope you give this a try. Head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.